Hi guys, I'm back with this week's Lovecraft Country review. So this is the fourth episode of the first season, so we're almost halfway through now. And the episode is called A History of Violence. Obviously also a film, but yeah, this is another really great episode. It's so compelling, so interesting. It has a great focus, which I think is a good reason why this works as kind of an anthology. Obviously, there are continuing elements, but again, this episode feels like sort of a standalone story, so it definitely has that anthology type feel. And once again, there's some wonderful character drama and nice little beats. And I think the genius of this show so far has been how it's balanced so many things. Because in this episode, again, there's quite a lot of humour in it at times, but it's beautifully worked into like the drama and the horror and the various other things going on. They've really got the balance down so well, and I think at this point we're just so invested in the characters. So the plot of the episode is that Yeti is approached at a house by Christina. Christina makes it clear to her that she gave her the money to buy the house, so it's almost like a power trip from Christina. She also tells her then Atticus threatened her and tried to shoot her in the previous scene or previous episode. And she tries to talk the teacher into letting her into the house so that she can get. She's looking for some missing pages from her father's spell book, and she's almost trying to convince Letitia that Atticus is a threat and that she needs to conduct a spell to protect herself. So the focus of the episode becomes Letitia, I should say, Atticus and Montrose trying to find these missing pages from this book, so that they can use them for their own purposes to protect themselves. And we sort of find out that Montrose is the key. Then he has history with this book, and his like research and stuff goes back, kind of years with this. And once again, Letitia's dead father Titus is referenced, because the trio end up going to this museum in Boston, and it's where where Titus had like an exhibition, and it sort of plays into like his whole Adam and Eve type vibe. It's almost that sort of exhibition, but it's there where they know they can find the pages of this spell book. And once again, it has this real sort of adventure type vibe, but with horror thrown in. We almost get like a Goonies type plot in this, where they're trying to get to like the bottom of this museum and trying to find these pages, but along the way there's like all these little booby traps and things thrown at them, different like things they have to crack, different codes, and then other like supernatural threats. It's a really exciting episode once you get into the back half. It was good anyway, but once you get into the back half and then searching around the bottom of this museum late at night, because Montrose has a friend who's a security guard who lets them in, and yeah, it just becomes this full-on adventure, just full of like threat and twists and turns and tension. It's just brilliant, and again, the direction is really on point. When you see them like searching around the darkness, they've only got their like torches for light, and it's really like sort of dusty and murky down there, and all these various like things that they come up against. It's just like wonderful stuff, very, very tense. And at the start of the episode, we see Montrose like reading the book called The Order, which is how this is all related to. And this episode definitely gives Montrose a purpose, because Letitia wants Atticus to get involved, and he's like reluctant, and Montrose is just telling them to stay out of this, even though it seems important to them. And it's almost like Letitia like shames Montrose and says, you're letting him go off on this wild goose chase even though you've got all the answers. And another part of this I like is that it becomes like almost like this family type mission across the state, because they need a car, so they get like George's widow to drive them. They want to borrow her car, and she insists that they go along, and they have this idea of like this family trip where they take obviously Atticus's sister, because she wants to like visit the museum, so it becomes this trip. Now there's this other guy that comes who I actually don't know who it is. Seems to be someone from their past. My only guess is then it's the one who was like flirting and dancing with Letitia last week. It could have been him, because at one point he's being really crude with her actually, and trying to sort of flirt with her again, and he's generally a bit of a jerk, because he's like sort of trying to rub Atticus up the wrong way at one point, sort of teasing him about like his parents and things like that. He's quite sort of roguish and just a bit of a jerk, and at one point Letitia like puts him back in his place, which is really great. But he comes along too. I actually don't know who he is. I'm only assuming he's the guy from last week who was dancing with her. But there's that whole thing. And there's a couple of nice touches, when they're still back home. There's I actually quite like how they're in the bar at one point, and it's when they're talking to Montrose, and they just get interrupted because it's like a sports bar, and they're interrupted by the sound and the noise. I think either from the music or maybe from the sports game. And I just thought about that, because it's kind of like it's this white sort of thing that is like interrupting them as they're trying to get on with this mystery, this sort of mission. So it's almost like, I guess in the 60s, sport was very like privileged to white people, and it's almost like a white cultural thing is like interrupting this these African American characters. And there's a couple touches like that, because when they're in the library, which is different because it is actually a black kid warning her, but one of the more funny comedic scenes is they're in the library, and it's when Letitia like approaches Atticus and tries to get him to come in on her with this. And she keeps being told to shush by this kid, which is pretty funny. So then you have them like whispering under their breaths, and I was actually straining to hear what they were saying. I just about got the gist. But as I said, there is this great focus and these various things happen, and they start exploring like the exhibition, and it becomes this set of riddles because at one point they have to decide which like path to go down, and all this stuff is important to what could potentially happen to them or how easy they could get to where the pages are. And at one point the decision is based upon trying to remember when Titus came back from his like expedition in I think it was the Caribbean, and it's like after he came back, that's kind of when his experiences were told in this exhibition. So it's almost this very sort of like racist sort of exhibition, but based on remembering when he actually came back from the Caribbean, that's sort of leads into their decision which path to take, and the path they decide to take leads to a plank basically that they have to walk across when there's no floor underneath. And this scene visually is just awesome and so tense because Letitia goes first and then she's knocked almost off it, and Atticus comes out after her, and it's revealed that there's some sort of, because it's very misty, and there's some sort of like mythical supernatural pendulum almost going back and forth, and the characters have to dodge it at various points. And Montrose is still the other end, so he hasn't like come out yet, started walking, and then the end starts disappearing, so the plank is like disappearing, catching up with the other two. And so basically Montrose just has to jump, and Atticus has to try and catch him and keep his balance, and it's all great stuff. It all adds to the tension, and it's quite a nice little character beat to Montrose because he gets to like, put it to Atticus like, hell yeah, I told you I was a good jumper. But there's all these various things that are happening because they obviously get to the end of the plank, and then there's like a door, there's like a safe almost that they have to get through, and at one point an arm is there, and they have to take off the arm. It's almost like some sort of like a lock or a safe. And then Atticus puts his hand in, but his hand is then grabbed and pulled inside. And again, it's really sort of visual, but we see his blood fill up inside, and it works really well because basically, as we discovered a couple of episodes ago, he has like the right sort of bloodline. So his blood is like recorded and read, and it allows them to open the vault, and then they go into like this bottom layer, into this like almost just like room with all these like artifacts and different sort of things, and I've probably missed something else actually, because there's obviously various things that happens to them, but that's I guess that's probably the main one which stands out. But yeah, it's some great stuff going on, as I said. I like actually the moment when Letty puts Atticus in his place, and because he's kind of getting on her a bit and saying, well, look what we've been through and stuff like this, and she feels like he's making it too much about him, and she just reminds it, hey, I died and he got kidnapped, pointing to Montrose, so get over yourself, we're going through this as well. And it's sort of her individualism and just how badass she is, which really partly defines Letitia actually, and makes her such a fun little character. Um, but yeah, they go underwater at some point, and the water starts coming up like at sea level, and that's when they realise that they've only got so much time. Otherwise, they'll just drown, or they'll miss their opportunity to get the pages. And there's actually a reveal from Montrose that he actually destroyed the book years ago. But obviously, I guess these pages are still out there, so they can still get these pages. But he's just says to them, "Yeah, I destroyed it. I shut that Pandora's box." And you can definitely see where Montrose is coming from. You can definitely understand why he would do that. It does feel like the safe option to do, considering the power of the book and all the things that can come from it. So anyway, there's the stuff with them underwater. As I said, they finally get to this room, and they think they've got the pages. They see like a scroll where with the pages on, and it's like in this dead woman's hand. But the trick is that when Atticus reaches for it, they wake her up. It's like this really dusty body, and it starts shaking, and she grabs Atticus, and she was dead, but then he awakes her basically. It's another great horror moment, basically this sort of freaky type, macabre type moment of this body starting to shake and then coming alive and grabbing at him. And they find out that she was hired by Titus to decode like these manuscripts, and he promised her that she would be returned to her people if she did that, but no, he was lying. He just killed her basically, and that was all those years ago. So it's making this comparison basically between she was a part of a particular culture that was sneered and mistreated by Titus and others, and obviously Atticus makes the sort of compassionate point that we're sorry about what happened to you and your people, but now we're having a similar thing done to us, or attempted to be done to us by Titus and his people. So we need your help to kind of fight back and to try and save us and stuff like that. And she is sympathetic, but she decides really not to help them. And Montrose like, well, come on, screw this. Let's just get these pages. And he does grab the pages. And once again, all hell sort of breaks loose, because as soon as he snatches the pages away, like water sort of floods in and all different things fly at them. And they end up with the woman, like the woman ends up coming with them. But ultimately they survive. It's another like white knuckle moment, and they've got the pages, but the episode sort of ends actually with Montrose killing her. Like the other two have gone away, and Montrose comes up behind, says sorry, and kills her. Now I'm assuming that's just because there could be consequences of having this woman around and her powers and stuff, but so he's just being like better safe than sorry sort of thing, even though it makes him seem a bit of a dick. I mean, I guess she deserves maybe now an opportunity to have life again, but clearly Montrose doesn't see it like that. So it's a pretty cool ending anyway. But yeah, all the stuff with them and the museum I absolutely loved. It was so like cinematic and gripping, and again very very tense, very distinct. Like the look of the museum was fantastic. So really compelling stuff, and again the way the characters were just like bouncing off each other, and there was some meaty stuff. Now another interesting development around that plot is then when George's widow, I forget her name now, but when she's driving back with Atticus's sister, the sister, what's her name again? Diane, I think. She actually has George's like atlas, which he marked out all the different places. And this is the first time his wife, his widow, has noticed this. So she sees her with that and takes a look, and she notices, and obviously he marked down Devon County, which is the place they obviously went to in the first 2 episodes, the place where they found Montrose. So obviously this rings a bell with the widow, and she's very suspicious, and obviously she's now wants to find out exactly what is going to happen. So that sets up some intriguing stuff, I'm assuming, for the next episode. There's this subplot with Letitia's sister, Ruby. I almost said Judy, but Ruby. And that stuff I actually wasn't that keen on, just because it was this plot where she's still obviously pissed at Letitia getting the money. Obviously she thinks she got it from the mother, even though it turns out it was actually Christina involved. But Ruby doesn't know that, and she's very bitter still. And obviously they had a whole fight last week, so she's kind of still taking that wrath, and she goes out and gets drunk at one point because she has this performance which sort of isn't her typical performance. It doesn't go down very well in the bar, but I think because at one point she goes to like this department store, and it's like this rich sort of clothes shop, and she actually is served by a black woman, and she's surprised obviously because normally they don't hire black people at this sort of place. And she says, yeah, I was surprised when they hired me. Now I thought at first they might do something with this, and there might be something suspicious behind the hiring and a little more. And there still might be. They might still return to the department store. But I think the point of it in this episode is then it just sort of set Ruby off. It got her mind thinking and made her even more angry about the situation with the racial divide. So she goes off and gets drunk, and we see Christina's, I'm not quite sure who he is, but he's someone connected to her, maybe like a bodyguard or something. We see him in the episode earlier beat up these guys who are following Christina. But he approaches Ruby in the bar and starts flirting with her, and they start drinking together. And we do get one of these HBO style moments, because we get a musical montage. We get Marilyn Manson thrown in, and we just see them have this passionate sex scene. And it is full on. It is a HBO style love scene. But I don't know, I just thought that was a bit weaker, just because it was kind of her just being grumpy about the previous week, and it didn't, I don't know, there didn't seem to be that much to that plot. And then obviously she has sex with him, but we'll see where it leads. I mean, obviously they're going to follow up on it, I would think. And there's little bits apart from that with Christina, because we see her talking to the local police and kind of question, well, why did Negroes move into the house and stuff. But we see obviously she's got connections with the local police. But that's about it. Again, a really, really good episode. I think this is sort of right up there. I think actually it might be my second favourite episode after the pilot. I would actually have to rewatch it, but it's really good again. Really good stuff. And I think at this point I'm just confident that the people producing this show just have such a great handle on the material. The direction's good, the character's good, it's full of tension, it's full of intrigue, really stylish, good actors as well. They've cast it pretty much to perfection. So I think I'm just confident, and at this point, they're not really going to drop the ball. I think, at least for this season anyway, I think we're in for one hell of a ride, one hell of a compelling TV series. So very good stuff again from Lovecraft Country, and I'm excited for more next week. So let me know your comments or your thoughts on this episode if you've seen it. Like and subscribe if you are new to the channel and you want to support me and keeping this content going. Another show I'm covering at the moment, another new show, is Netflix's Umbrella Academy. So I've just posted my review of episode 8 on this channel, so you can find that if you're interested in this show. I also do older classic shows such as The X-Files, so recently started that, and there's 7 reviews of The X-Files up on the channel, which is the first season, of course. And believe me, I'm crazy, I know, but I'm going to do it all. So if you're an X-Files fan, you can also check out those reviews. But more Lovecraft Country to come next week. But thanks for listening, and goodbye.